Chapter 171. After checking the red flower pot, I went straight to my grandfather's office. Knock, knock. Grandpa, are you there? Tia, come on in. Whatever it is, my granddaughter still looked busy. He was reading documents one by one, stacking papers like a mountain on both sides of the desk. I'll call you, John. Would you like some cookies? Just finish what's urgent and go there. Grandpa, too. No matter how old I am, I was still given some cookies. Though the cookies from Butler John are especially delicious. Instead of answering, I approached my grandfather's desk and said, Can I have a moment of your time? I have something to tell you. It would be nice to have a relaxing conversation with my grandfather after a long time. There are a lot of things that need to be prepared quickly to get Lorraine out. It must be urgent. My grandfather put down the flag pen he had in his hand because he felt something unusual from my expression. Tell me, Tia. I'll make it short, Grandpa. I took a short breath and said, I'm thinking of helping Lorraine escape. Grandfather was not surprised or angry. He was just staring at me. It's an expression to keep talking. Lorraine agreed to. My grandfather is trying to prevent Lorraine from getting married, but I know too, Grandpa, that Lorraine won't last long. Hmm. Grandfather sighed low instead of answering. Like this, the power fight between our family and the imperial family ends, and Lorraine becomes free from marriage with the imperial family. After that, it takes too long to officially exchange proposals with Luman. I don't know if I can get there. Grandpa doesn't know about this. Because Lorraine, who can't stand it, is escaping for love. The difference between heaven and earth is whether Lorraine gets the permission of the householder to escape. But if the knights aren't guarding the front door tonight, and if the gate open, it will be a lot easier for Lorraine to get out of the mansion, Grandpa. My grandfather's brown eyes stared at me. I asked carefully, Are you all right, Grandpa? In fact, it's also a gamble to tell my grandfather the story of Lorraine. Anyway, it was disgraceful that Lorraine Lombardi's direct lineage fled for love with someone. Most aristocrats will lock all doors even if only the letter L from escape of love comes out. How about Grandpa? At first glance, a smile crossed my grandfather's eyes, and again, holding a pen in his hand, he said, Are you okay? I don't know what you're talking about, Tia. Oh, I knew it. A subtle smile hung around my grandfather's lips. I know, then I'll go, Grandpa. I nodded and walked out of the office. Now the preparation is complete. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. It's night. The sky is also helping Lorraine, and the moon has not risen tonight. Under the dark night sky, I tapped his familiar back and said, Thank you for your hard work today, Perez. This plan cannot be established without Perez, so I asked him to make time for me on a comfortable day. Tonight and tomorrow night is the letter. He jumped over Lombardi's wall tonight and came to me without a reply right away. Escape of love may be Perez's specialty. Tia, it's rare that you need me. I'll come when you call me. Perez replied with a sneaky smile. Then he pointed to the terrace of Lorraine's room and asked, You want me to put you back up there, right? Yes, and today you have to drop Lorraine's as well as me. Lorraine Lombardi too? Perez tilted his head a little surprised and said, Are you trying to get her out today? You talk as if you knew I was trying to get Lorraine to run away. I thought Tia wouldn't just wait and see, but if it's today, Paris glanced up at the sky and replied, That's a good day. Shadows don't look good on days like this. What? You sound like you've done a lot. Sometimes at the academy. Paris didn't say much about it. I thought he only studied like a model student because he graduated with top grade and graduated early. I don't think it's right to see him say that sometimes. Leaving aside some curiosity about Paris's academy life. Come here, Tia, Paris said, reaching out to me like last time. You, the way he talks is weird. Why? Paris looks at me with an innocent face as if he doesn't know anything. Oh, it's done. It's working. Paris picked me up last time. Still, it's the second time, and there's a much more stable posture than last time. Paris' arms support my hips, and I wrap my arms around Paris' neck, and then his face is in front of my nose. Thump. Paris' eyes, which I can only see in the dim light of the night, were looking at me. Strange, it's dark, so everything else has lost its light, but Paris' red eyes are as red as a ruby. I passed Paris' gaze and said with my face buried in his neck, Put me up. Yes, whoosh. A couple of big winds blew, and I thought Paris' body was getting stronger, and I was on the Lorraine's balcony. Thank you, Paris. Coming down from Paris' arm, I had to admit one thing. It is very regrettable to be away from him. I deliberately turned my head not to see Paris' face and knocked on the window. Knock, knock. Soon after, the door to the terrace opened and Lorraine appeared. And she said with a strange expression, No one is protecting me tonight. Everyone went to bed early. She added, I think it's worth being a person who doesn't know how to lie. It was a little self-help word. I asked with a slight tap on Lorraine's shoulder. Are you ready? Yes, here. The bag showing was small enough to be lifted with one hand. Is that really enough, Lorraine? At first, I didn't know what to do, but there weren't that many things I really want to take. Lorraine's face looked very lonely saying so. But just in case, why don't you look around the room one more time? No, it's okay, Tia. Lorraine shook her head. I want to start over. It was a determined and calm face I had never seen before. It is not just an escape of love with Avenox. I could see that tonight was even more meaningful for Lorraine. But I'm not very. Can we go down? Lorraine asked, looking down the terrace with a slightly nervous face. It's scary. It's supposed to be scary. It's not like you're tearing a sheet of making up and making a string. I hugged Perez again to reassure Lorraine. Let me show you first. You can count on Perez, Lorraine. Perez nodded with me, lifted me with one arm, and landed safely on the ground with just a few steps, just like when he came up. I waved a big hand at Lorraine up there, meaning it was okay. I'll be back. Perez, who left a short word, back to the terrace again. Oh, that's how you climbed over the wall. Not being hugged, I could see how Perez moved at a glance. How powerful is that? At the same time, Perez is indeed a man of superhuman physical ability. Not long after, Lorraine stepped on the ground safely. Whoa, whoa. She was probably nervous, but she has to move fast from now on. Let's go, Lorraine. It's over there. The three of us walked through the woods of the mansion and arrived as close to the main gate as possible. And there were two horses and people waiting for us. Gilyu, Mayron, surprised, Lorraine's little voice trembled. I brought two of the mildest horses in the stable. You have to see your face on the way, Lorraine. Gilio and Maron grinned at Lorraine, two of you. Thank you, I won't forget. At Lorraine's words, the twins scratched their cheeks embarrassingly and shrugged. What's wrong with you? Like I'm never going to see you again. Right, you're not going to kick me out if I go to the east, are you? Lorraine managed to regain her smile at the playful words of Gilio and Myron. Lorraine can ride a horse alone, right? Yes, I've learned a horseback riding since I was a kid. Don't worry, Tia. Lorraine replied, wearing on the dark robes the twins had prepared in advance, and put down the hood. Give me your hand, Tia. Perez, who was on the horse first, reached out to me. And as soon as I took that hand, my body was lifted and settled in front of Perez. We'd love to go, but the fewer people we have in this kind of thing, the better. Gillia said, helping Lorraine get on the horse well. Go safe, Lorraine. Myron held the reins of the horse in Lorraine's hand. Thank you. Lorraine eventually shed tears, but the smile was not removed from her face. Let's go. With my horse, Perez began to drive. End of chapter 171. Chapter 172. I couldn't speak up because I couldn't make the sound of horseshoe loud. Whoa, it was the most nervous and impatient moment. I glanced around the still quiet mansion. It is likely that Vise and Sarah, who will notice it right away, will come out with a loud shout. It's okay, Tia. I don't know if he has noticed my anxiety. Bella soothed me with a low voice. The distance of whispering in my ears was so close that I could feel uncomfortable. Thanks to him, I was able to calm myself down. I shouldn't look nervous in front of Lorraine. When I reached the main gate of the mansion, nobody's here. Grandfather kept his promise. The main gate, which the Knights of Lombardy and the soldiers were supposed to guard strictly, was empty with no one. The gate opened a little too. Even the unlocked iron gate was open enough to fit in and out. By any chance, the only person that can order the Knights of Lombardy and soldiers to vacate the post, it's just my grandfather. Lorraine knew it well, so she looked at me with astonishment, but not the only one who wants you to be happy. I'm not the only one who wants you to be happy. In fact, that's why I asked the twins too. I could have moved in advance and prepared a horse by myself, even if it was unlucky to have parents like Cyril and Vise. I wanted her to know that Lombardy has people who support and love her. I don't want Lorraine to reminisce sadly until the day she left Lombardy. Everyone, Lorraine didn't say anything after that. I didn't talk to her on purpose either. It was because I thought she needed time to organize her thoughts alone. Fortunately, by the time we got out of the mansion and reached our destination, the plains, Lorraine was smiling refreshingly as she drove her horse. Lorraine, Avenox, who was hovering nervously near the carriage he had prepared, came running as soon as he saw Lorraine. Sir Avenox half jumped from the horse. Lorraine fell into Avenox's arms. The couple, who had been reunited with difficulty, hugged each other so tightly. Take this. I approached those two people and brought out an envelope. This is a boarding pass. A boarding pass? The two of you are going to Cheshire as soon as possible. From now on. Go on and take the Eastern Cruise ship of Pellet Corporation. Eastern Cruise, huh? Lorraine opened the envelope, looked at the boarding pass, and opened her eyes wide. If you take the cruise, you can arrive in the East in a week. It's much safer and faster than running away by land. Once you two arrive at Cheshire Port, my father will be waiting. I told him beforehand. I stood in front of Lorraine, and at that moment, I hugged her skinny body tightly. Go to the East and live a happy life, Lorraine. You can forget about Lombardy a little bit. Tia, but that doesn't mean you have to overdo it. If you're having a hard time, feel free to write to me for help, okay? Thank you. Thank you very much, Tia. In the end, Lorraine burst into tears. I took out a handkerchief, pressed it down on Lorraine's eyes, and said, and when the date of the wedding is set, send someone to the Pallet Corporation. I'll let you have a big wedding, Lorraine, for everyone to envy you. The Pallet Corporation? Lorraine's eyes, who was briefly looking at the boarding pass, were shaken. It's as if she has realized something. By any chance, I said with a big smile at Lorraine, who asked carefully. Lorraine and Avenak's rooms are specially reserved for the best suits in the cruise. Surprised for a moment, Lorraine hugged me tightly and cried, thank you, Tia. That's enough for my cousin and Sir Avenox. Avenox replied, a bit nervously to my sharp eyes. Yes, Lady Florentia, if you make our Lorraine cry, the cruise to the east and the trade ship, I'm going to cut it all off. Well, don't worry. I glanced at Avenox, gave him a warning until the end, then gently pushed Lorraine's back towards the carriage. Go on, you don't have much time because you have to arrive by the date on the boarding pass. Thank you, Lady Florentia. And the prince, Avenox bowed to Perez and got on the carriage first. Well then, I'm off, Lorraine said, clenching my sleeve. I'll write to you as soon as I arrive at Lumen and His Highness the Prince. Lorraine suddenly looked back at Perez and said, Please take good care of Tia. Lorraine, what are you talking about? Perez, why are you nodding again? Instead of answering, Lorraine smiled oddly and climbed onto the carriage. It was a very light step. The carriage wheels began to roll slowly, with the clatter of doors closing. Tuck, tuck, tuck. At the sound of the horseshoe, the appearance of the carriage gradually faded away. Watching from behind, it was only me and Perez on the dark plains. Whoosh! The wind blew hard. Tia, Perez called me. Yes, this won't be the end. There could be after you. Perhaps, I know. I'm prepared to do that, but it'll be better than seeing Lorraine withering cold again. The fact that the carriage is now far from sight gave a strange sense of relief. The Empress is not the one to give up here. I'm not the one who's going to push all the way here without any plans. I looked back at Perez and asked, If the situation worsened, are you going to help me, Perez? Perez caught my long hair flying in the wind and kissed quietly at it. Even if I die, I can. It sounded like an exaggeration, but I couldn't laugh, because I know Perez's sincerity. I stood on the plane a little longer and looked at the way Lorraine had left, and it was not until very late at night that I returned to the mansion. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. How long do I have to wait, Empress? Javanes ran into Empress Palace and shouted, Lombardi cut off all the supplies coming into the capital, and the people are clamoring. Everybody's swearing at me. The emperor was a little embarrassed, and he only added a little support because the empress said there was a good way to tie Lombardi's limbs. Of course, the iron mine he received was being mined smoothly, but it had long been erased from Jovane's head. Whether or not she knows the nervousness of Emperor Jovanes, Empress Rabini replied, rising from her seat in a leisurely manner. It will be over tomorrow, Your Majesty. Tomorrow? Yes, there is a regular meeting of the aristocracy tomorrow. The agenda to be presented at that time must have been delivered to each family by now, so the response will come soon. What's on the agenda? Jovins asked out of curiosity. Nothing special. It is just a law that strengthens the law of firstborn succession, which has been the basis for the growth of the empire. The law of succession to the eldest son. Jovins, who had habitually poured alcohol, was startled. Rabini smiled and took a bottle from the emperor's hand and filled the glass for him. Unless the eldest son has a major reason for disqualification, such a lineage, the succession of the family takes precedence over the eldest son. Well, that kind of law would certainly bring out Lombardi. Jovins squirmed his head. For some reason, Lulak seemed reluctant to hand over the family to his eldest son, Viz. To prevent the law from being passed by the aristocracy, Lombardy will have to attend a meeting in the capital on its own, but he can't cross the gates of the capital until we lift the Golden Order. Empress Rubina's smile deepened. Right now, he'll have to agree to the marriage of Viz's daughter and Astana to resolve the Golden Order, or he'll have to sit back and watch the law of the firstborn succession to pass. The Empress was very satisfied with the idea she had come up with. If the firstborn succession law was passed, Viz would succeed the Lombardy family, so Astana would create an ally that had never been before. Even if Lulak Lombardi appears at the meeting and interferes with the law of the firstborn succession, the marriage of Lorraine Lombardi and Astana will bring great financial benefits. Also, it wasn't only the nobles who were affected by this law. Rabini sneaked a glance at Emperor Jovanes. Agenda passed by the aristocratic council is bound to come up to a conference hosted by the emperor, and if there is no right justification, the emperor will have to pass the law, and future succession to the throne will be affected. The empress has come up with a very good idea. Jovane said so and hid his expression behind the glass. If the law of succession of the eldest son is passed and affects the throne, it will be difficult for him to gain benefits by weighing the first and second prince. But Lombardis wouldn't let that happen. Aside from the Lombardi family, Lulak was not the only one to be swept down from the throne, so this time he'll have to allow his granddaughter to marry. If that happens, Jovanes can keep his pride, and we will be able to soothe the public sentiment as soon as possible. For Emperor Jovanes, it was a business that had nothing to lose. Thinking that the Empress had done something he liked for the first time in a long time, Jovanes sipped at the glass with a relaxed heart. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Ballot Corporation's office. Cough, cough. Hey, look at this. It was the new agenda of the aristocratic council that makes Bate forgot the cake delivery box and rushed to inform. The law of succession to the eldest son. It's a big deal, Clarivan said, washing his face dry. If there's something wrong, Sir V's really going to change the family. Violet shook her head and muttered as if it were terrible just to imagine. In the meantime, they've used their brain a little bit. I admit it. This time the Empress seems to have worked her brains out. I knew there was something to be aimed at, but I didn't expect there's a kind of law like this. However, this does not mean that there's no way to overcome this situation. They're probably happy Lombardy has dug up a trap that will never be able to escape. I still have a way to properly water the Empress. End of chapter 172. Chapter 173. You made me use this method. I checked my clothes in front of the mirror before going out. I don't like to rush into anything, but today is an exception. A meeting of the aristocracy will be held tomorrow morning, where the law of succession to the eldest son will be rejected or approved. I have only one day left today. I hope Perez is there now. It was when I opened the door with the intention of visiting the monarch top. Oh, Perez. Perez was at the door with one hand raised, perhaps just about to knock on my door. Where are you going? Perez asked me, the smell of wind smeared from the man who came in a hurry. To see you. I thought so, so I came. Come on in. I took Perez to the drawing room, putting my purse down on the table. Normally, I'd have served him a cup of tea, but today I got to the point as soon as I sat down. Have you heard the news too? The law of succession to the eldest son? This was the treat the Empress had prepared. Perez nodded with a stiff face and continued, if it approved at the Noble Council, it will take effect immediately for the nobles. Then Tia, Lombardi. Perez seemed to be worried about me first when he heard the news about the law. The only one who knows my goal of becoming the matriarch. Of course, this law issued by the Empress is not aimed at me. At best, it was an attempt to tie my grandfather's hands and feet. She can put Vis as the next lord, or she can mate Lorraine, Vis's daughter, with Astana. The Empress was trying to make my grandfather choose between the two. However, it is my side that the Empress hit directly without even realizing it. So I understand that Perez is worried about me. I shook my head and said, once it has been proposed to the nobility meeting, it will affect the throne as well. This law is also aimed at you, Perez. In other words, it is not the time to care about others. But Perez said with a slightly expressionless face, fortunately, it's just me and Astana who are His Majesty's sons. Just two? There is also a way for me to become the firstborn and the only son. Ah, how to be the eldest and the only son. That is, getting rid of Astana. I forgot for a moment how Perez rose to the throne in my previous life. He was the type to do anything for his goal. But Tia, you wouldn't want to use that method, of course. I'm worried about you. Perez said, pulling back my slightly drooped bangs. First of all, the eldest son means blocking a woman from becoming a successor. Even if there is a family that sometimes considers passing the family to the capable daughter, like my grandfather, under the firstborn succession law, it is not possible to do so. Women are not sons and therefore are completely excluded from the line of succession. Only the first son is the right successor. For now, my grandfather should be able to attend the aristocratic conference. The nobility council without my grandfather, Lord of Lombardy, is the wits of the lowly Angenas. Basically, it is a place where the majority vote is the rule, and the most influential person in the nobility society without my grandfather's was the Lord of Angenas, Luigi. Perhaps by now he is meeting with other nobles for tomorrow's vote and persuading them. Of course, the most effective way is money. In this situation, where I don't know when my grandfather's golden order will be lifted, the families that usually followed Lombardy will have no choice but to be wary of Angenas. So I have to send my grandfather to the nobility council. Perez was listening to me calmly. I looked at his black hair, his face, and his red eyes one by one. I have a way to water the Empress, but I can't do it alone. It's only possible with Perez's help. I took a deep breath and said to the guy looking at me as quietly as if waiting, Perez, you told me to use you before. Perez nodded slowly. It's just that his black hair is slightly falling forward. Suddenly, my heart started beating. It's not even real. What's wrong with you? Calm down, my heart. Why don't we use each other? Use each other? I opened my purse, and I took out what I was talking to Perez and handed it to him. This is, Perez frowned slightly. Am I being rejected? I grabbed my heart and said nothing. It's a diamond. I know. Perez touched with his finger a few times at what I gave him and put it down. Then he took the same small box out of his arms and showed it to me. It's a red diamond. Red diamonds are as red as ruby, shining in small light. Maybe we were thinking the same thing, Perez said with a slight smile on his face. No, isn't that a different idea? Eyes as red as a red diamond stared at my swaying gaze. Then I'd be a little disappointed, Perez said, putting two small boxes side by side in front of me. It's your choice, Tia. Your way and mine. Which way you're going? Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The day when the nobility meeting is held, the Empress burst into laughter at the news brought by Cyril and Vis, whose faces were pale. What? Ahahaha. Empress Rabini looked really amused. Empress? Cyril and Vis, who thought it was all over, looked at Rabini in confusion. Ahahaha. Lorraine, that kid? You said that kid ran away? Now Cyril was even more terrified by Rabini's smile. Tears ran down from the corners of her eyes. It was because she thought Rabini was so scary, was so angry at the news of Lorraine, who dared to refuse the marriage with the prince and secretly run away at night. Did you let Luigi know about this, Cyril? I told him before the nobility council began, but I think we should tell the Empress ourselves and apologize. Inevitably, Cyril's voice trembled. Since childhood, she has been afraid as she knows Rabini's cruel personality. We were releasing people and chasing where she's going, so we'll find it quickly. She couldn't go far because she didn't know how to go. Yeah, sure, but even if you find it, you have to hide her somewhere, Cyril. Yes, Empress Rabini said with an uncharacteristically wide smile. Maybe heaven is trying to help my son. The winner's smile smudged over Rabini's over Rubini's beautiful face. Now that Lorraine has escaped, there's no way for Lombardi to break the golden order. Realizing the meaning of the word, Vis hit his knee. Then the law of succession to the oldest son could be passed at today's nobility council. That's right. It's funny that we have to make what we have to do separately by law. What can I do? Rabini said in a drowsy voice. Congratulations, Lord Lombardi. After today, you will be able to become a formal successor. Thank you, Empress. And Saral, if you find Lorraine, as I said earlier, keep it hidden away from people's eyes. Once this is over, shouldn't we try to marry her to Astana again? Yes, Empress. Her smiled with Cyril smiled with a sigh of relief. It is only a matter of time before the law of succession of the eldest son to pass through the nobility council, and the consent of the representative families of each region will now be obtained upon approval by His Majesty. There is only one heir to the throne permitted by law, so what can they do? Empress Rabini was surprised herself to come up with such a trick. The things that worried her and blocked Astana's way would all fly away at once. But Her Majesty the Empress asked Cyril, who was well aware of Javain's greed, with a little concern. I'll give him what he wants. There would be a lot of bleeding, but if Astana became crown prince, nothing was irreparable. Now, if you can just relax and wait. It was when Rabina said, opening the lid of the teapot. Empress, one of the Empress's aides, jumped in contemplating, and when she saw teapot in Rabina's hand, he closed his eyes and shouted, it is said that the golden order of the Lord of Lombardy has been lifted, Empress. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The hall of the Nobility Council of the Imperial Palace, Luigi and Janus, was successfully driving the conference as planned. The law of succession to the eldest son is an agenda to once again correct the law of succession of the empire that has been disturbed. From the legitimacy of the law, then, the reason for disqualification of the eldest son, as discussed, is as follows. If the mother's bloodline is low, if he is involved in a felony, such a treason, and even setting the reasons for disqualification in the narrowest sense, with the nobles who had been bribed, it was going as fast as the Empress ordered. Luigi and Janus looked at the members of the aristocracy sitting on the other side with a satisfied face. Originally, they were sticking to the Lulac Lombardis and chasing his tail. However, the momentum was completely dampened when the ban on Lombardy was issued and his return became unclear. Luigi and Janus had a fishy laugh. Some of them who are quick to change their positions, have already met yesterday and succeeded in recruiting them to vote today. Of course, he didn't give them any money. They had to come on their own feet to win on Janus in the future. Besides, Lorraine Lombardi ran away at night. Lulac is over now. Remembering his father, Frederick and Janus, who was always pressed down by Lulac Lombardi, Luigi and Janus clenched his fist. Then you start voting, Mr. Chairman, Luigi and Janus said to the noble council chairman, who was sitting blankly holding a gavel. The chairman was also one of the Lulac Lombardi's tail chasers. Luigi planned he would sit in the chairman's seat after the law was put together. Well then, it was a moment when the chairman was about to say, sweating uncomfortably at the gaze of Luigi and Janus. Bump! The large doors of the conference hall, which had been closed, opened on both sides. Lombardi. The pro-Lombardi nobles, who were looking like porridge, sprang up from their seats. Hey, what are you doing here? Luigi and Janus also woke up in surprise, kicking his chair. The inside of the conference hall quickly became chaos. But the cause of the disturbance, Lord Lulac Lombardi strode to the center of the conference without saying a word, and he looked back at the nobles who filled both sides with a stiff face. One by one, with his hands behind his back, after looking at it with sharp eyes, Lulac opened his mouth. It is an inherent right of nobles to decide on succession. A long echoing voice spread throughout the conference hall. When the empire was founded, it was the tradition of the eldest succeeding the family that was recommended to prevent excessive competition for succession. But, Lulac said, staring precisely at Luigi and Janus, nobody can meddle in identifying successors and inheriting the family to continue the great responsibilities and duties of the householder. And he yelled at the nobles sitting around Luigi and Janus. Who is the fool who wants to approve of this law that violates the right of the divine aristocracy? The sound of Lulac's shouts, followed with a sour eye, echoed in the conference room. Huh? At that moment, Luigi and Janus closed his eyes tightly, foreboding the failure of the firstborn succession law. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Emperor Jovin stared at me and Paris sitting side by side, touching his chin. Then he asked in a suspicious voice, So you two are engaged? Yes, Your Majesty. I smiled and replied, deliberately twisting my body slightly so that the ring on my fourth finger can be seen better. The transparent diamond sparkled in the bright light coming in from the outside. End of chapter 173. Chapter 174. I didn't know you two were like that, because I went there so early in the morning. Emperor Jovan's face was still full of sleepiness. Nevertheless, there was a surprise and some doubt in the eyes of me and Perez. I suddenly had a hunch that if I leave it here, I would have to recite a love story that didn't exist. It's annoying, so I have to show it in action. I sneaked and grabbed Perez's hand on his lap. Then I could see Perez's hand clenching in my hand. I could see his body stiffening. Hoo-hoo. Pretending to smile, I turned my head and stared at Perez. Hey, do it right. Did you come to your senses after being glared at by me? Perez's hand, which was still under my hand, moved and rather held my hand, firmly as if he had never hesitated. The sensation of my hands being wrapped in a big rough hand was quite warm and good, and I could feel Jovan's gaze falls into the hand that Perez held. On purpose, I made lovingly eye contact with Perez once, because I'm a little bit shy, Your Majesty. I could see Perez wriggling under his eyes. Why? What? So I asked the prince to keep it a secret for the time being. Is there any particular reason you did that? Jovins persistently asked, even though I explained a little while ago that I was shy. Maybe I'm trying to dig into my mind, but I answered with a bright smile. My heart is not ready yet. Prepare your heart. I'm preparing for my heart to speak to my family, Your Majesty. Your Majesty is well aware of the Lombardy people's extraordinary family love, right? That's true. Look at this. Lombardi's love for his blood is famous enough to immediately convince that sly emperor. To be honest, Vise would have been kicked out 100 times if it was not for my grandfather and Lombardi's unique family style, which values blood relatives. Your Majesty. Perez, who was listening to the emperor's conversation silently, opened his mouth. It's been a long time since Lady Lombardi and I have known each other, but it hasn't been long since the relationship developed. So please understand that our delay in coming here is to check each other's hearts. One of Jovan's eyebrows rose as he looked at Perez. It's all because of my lack of courage. With that word, Perez held my hand tighter. There was also a subtle smile around his mouth. There you go, Perez. It's worth raising. Racing. Oh, I've never seen the prince like that before, Jovain said as if he was amazed to see such Perez. Well, it's only acting, but it must be strange to see Perez like this. I quickly intervened and said, You said the combination of Lombardy and the imperial family would be a great help to the peace of the empire, Your Majesty. And I smiled broadly at Jovains. You're amazing, Your Majesty. What? I do not know either. However, I know that Jovains is a very weak type of compliment. Sure enough, the corners of Jovan's mouth wriggled unbearably. I didn't miss the chance and said, Now that we're engaged, there will be no unnecessary conflict between Lombardy and the imperial family, right? I am to I am so happy to contribute to the peace of the empire. Are you talking about the golden order of the Lord of Lombardy now? Jovanes tried to speak, hardening his loosened face. But I intercepted it first. No, I'm talking about the citizens of the capital and the nobles suffering from Lombardy's absence. Jovanes shot up. He seemed to be lost in thought. I can't believe I have to feed you this. Now, Emperor, open your ears and listen carefully. That's what His Majesty said in the personal letter to my grandfather. Agree to the marriage between the imperial family and Lombardy. I can see Jovanes' eyes shaking slightly. Now, you can see a little hole to get out of. It must have been Jovanes who stumbled the most because of my grandfather's super influence. Lombardy was free from public opinion, but the emperor had to be wary of the public. I'm showing such an emperor a way out. He can get what he wants and take his pride and leave the battle. The battle. Of course, I'm here because my grandfather recognized my relationship with His Highness the Prince. Lord of Lombardy? Yeah, because I'm Lombardy anyway. The first thing I needed was my grandfather's permission. So the Lord of Lombardy agreed to the marriage between the imperial family and Lombardy. Yes, Your Majesty. Slowly, relief and joy are seen spreading on Javain's face. Ha 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 ha. Suddenly, a big smile burst out of the emperor that raised an eyebrow. Yes, you guys who are already in love would be better than Vise's daughter, who said no and Astana. Oh my god. Like a man whose 10-year-old burden had fallen, Javains looked relieved. Then he said, bouncing Perez on the shoulder, You've done a great job, Second Prince. Very good. Perez's face was seen shaking with intense irritation. Hang in there, Perez. I held his hand tightly. However, the face of Javains, who is smiling a lot, does not look good to me as well. Finally, I solved my grandfather's golden order. I succeeded in watering the Empress. But Javains, you're not done yet. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Grandpa, I'm engaged. After having a meeting with the vassals about the law of succession to the eldest son, Lulak, who was resting, heard a sound like a thunderbolt. What are you talking about, Tia? Lulak's voice even shook. Wait a minute. Come in, Perez. Tia said to the door of the office, and it was Perez, the second prince, who showed up. You. Lulak also forgot that his opponent was the prince and pointed with his finger. No, it didn't matter now if the opponent was the emperor and not the prince. Jump. Eventually, Lulak stepped up from his seat. Perez stood next to Tia with a perfectly normal face as if he had anticipated such a reaction from Lulak. Lulak was angry at the sight of standing side by side, but he breathed deeply and managed to calm himself down. Explain what you mean, Tia. The law of succession to the eldest son, you have to stop it. What is it with your engagement? The wrinkles caught in Lulak's brow deepened. Tia, don't tell me. Can you show me His Majesty's letter for a moment? The one he issued the Golden Order. Lulak reluctantly took out the Emperor's letter, which had been roughly thrown into the drawer, and showed it to Tia. Well, as expected, Tia nodded her head. According to this golden order, my grandfather only has to agree to the marriage of Lombardy and the imperial family. It doesn't have to be Lorraine and the first prince. So now you and that guy are going to replace the engagement? The engagement, Lulak said, pointing at Perez with a chin gesture. Ever since pointing at Perez with a chin gesture, I Ever since Tia was young, he didn't like it when Perez was next to his granddaughter like a fox. But it was useful to keep the Empress in check. So he saved him. How dare you do that to my granddaughter? There was a spark in Lulak's eyes staring at Perez, who stood silently. Yes, Grandpa, whether she knows Lulak's heartbreak or not, but his lovely granddaughter answered so calmly. Tia, I've already finished talking to Perez. We made a contract engagement, letting you join the imperial family. It won't happen until dirt gets into my eyes. Lulak, who was muttering with his head on, stopped talking and asked, raising his head, contract engagement? Yes, Grandpa, Tia grinned, because Perez is also in trouble if this law is passed. Really? Lulak looked at Perez and asked, as if to confirm. Tia is right. It was the answer he had been waiting for, but Lulak's heart was not at ease. He's a man who can't be easily convinced, but it was obvious what kind of feeling he would have for his granddaughter under that expressionless face. It can be saying that the red eye that blindly followed Tia, a contractual engagement, then it wouldn't be his idea. Tia, you're come up with it. Yes, that's right. That's what I think. That's what I think. Perez and I are going to stop the law of succession to the eldest son through an engagement and go through the process of breaking up after a certain period of time. I heard Perez's heartbreak. If Tia does, then so be it. From the moment his granddaughter had already spoken, Lulak's anxiety about the contract engagement itself had disappeared to some extent. But there was something on his mind. Break off. I don't know what it will be like for the prince, but for Tia, it might be quite a costly deal. I know, even though you know it, are you going to stop the golden order of this grandfather by contractual engagement? Yes, Grandpa. Tia nodded her head, because it's for Lombardy. Rattle. Lulak woke up from the flashback with a single courage shaking. The law of succession to the eldest son was rejected. Lulak's expression was not so good, even though he buried himself deeply in a soft carriage seat. Even if it was a contract engagement, he felt uneasy at the thought of winning at the expense of his granddaughter. Then he suddenly remembered the second prince, who became the official fiancé of his granddaughter, and he felt even worse. It's only engagement, engagement. Just try to be more greedy. I won't let you go. Dorelli's blood as Artia's mate, that's ridiculous. It was Dorelli, who had never been a good guy for generations. So that's the reason. The second prince himself may have quite the ability. Tia's involvement with the imperial family is totally unacceptable for him, as her grandfather. I will find Tia's mate separately with an obedient and reliable man. Nolak stopped talking. An obedient, reliable man. It was somehow overlapped with Vera's image. In the meantime, Lulak's granddaughter, who was looking straight at him, could not get out of Lulak's head. Because it's for Lombardi. Oh my, when do you grow up like that? He thinks it was just yesterday that she was running around the mansion with a small body, sitting in the office couch eating cookies and drinking juice. Yeah, Lombardi must have that spirit. Lulak smiled with satisfaction. It was an affection for the Lombardi family, which seemed no less than Lulak himself, the owner of the household. If that's the way you feel, would be reliable even if I left the house to you. It was a word he said without much thought. But Lulak paused, and soon, stroking his beard, deep thought. He can give Tia the Lord's position. It was half a joke, but the picture he drew in his head was not bad. Rather, it was a very good match, like a child who grew up as a successor from the beginning. Florentia, Tia, in the carriage back to the mansion, Lulak's thoughts continued one after another. End of chapter 174. Chapter 175. 1 month later, Lorraine opened her eyes in the warm breeze that gently brushed her face. The first thing that greeted her when she woke up was the distant sound of Eastern folk songs. A smile spread to Lorraine's face in the melodious and cheerful song. Are you awake, Lady Lombardi? The gentle voice was to Kia, the maid of honor given by the Luman family. A friendly person with an impressive dark skin tone and jewel-like scarlet eyes helped Lorraine adjust to this place a lot. Lorraine said, drinking the cool water that Tukia gave him. You're supposed to call me by my first name, Tukia. Oh, right. I'm sorry, Lady Lorraine. Hoo, it's okay. We're still getting used to each other. And it's okay, isn't it? Lorraine asked as she rose from bed with a face full of anticipation. Yes, that's right. Oh, there he is. Lorraine's steps became faster when Tukia pointed out of the wide-open terrace. Ah, Lorraine subconsciously uttered an exclamation. A big ship was coming in across the blue horizon in the distance. It was an eastern cruise of Pellet Corporation, the splendid and large hull, which proudly roams over the sea as white clouds, made the viewer's heart race. I can't get enough of it no matter how many times I look at it. Before she knew it, Rukia came near her and was enjoying it. There's a lot of change going on in the east as there's a port in Cheshire and Pellet Corporation serves as a bridge between the Luman Estate and the center. Pellet Corporation, Lorraine recalled her cousin Tia. The night Tia rescued her from imprisoned, she also learned Tia's great secret. Although she did not hear the exact explanation, Lorraine intuitively realized that Pellet Corporation belonged to Tia, but she wasn't as surprised as she thought. I thought Tia might have a secret or two like that. Lorraine smiled as she recalled her cousin, who was always smart and brave, who was more like an older sister. I think Lady Lorraine is so beautiful when she smiles so broadly, Tukia said with great admiration. Am I? Lorraine touched her face in bewilderment. Certainly, her laughter has increased a lot since coming to the Luman family. Her personality is also much more active than before. Soon the goods from the ship will be carried to the mansion. Would you like to get ready for a quick look, Lady Lorraine? Lorraine smiled and nodded at Tukia's suggestion. After a while, Lorraine reached the largest hall in Lumen Mansion. At the call of Avenok's father, Lord Lumen. Good morning, Lord of Lumen. Lorraine greeted cautiously, looking a little nervous. It was the first time for Lorraine to face each other like this with Lord Lumen, as Avenox went on a tour of the estate. Oh, you're here. However, Lorraine, who only went to indict, greeted him brightly, enough to overshadow such concerns. Here, in front of Lady Lombardi, a lot of stuff has arrived. Would you like to take a look? Lorraine, who had hoped for a letter from Tia since Pellet Corporation's ship came in, her eyes were round. It was because a lot of things were piled up one by one to form a small hill where the Lord of Luman was pointing. Whoever, as she approached carefully and looked at the boxes, Lorraine found two letter envelopes in a small basket. The red envelope was a letter from Tia to Lorraine. I'm so glad you had a safe engagement ceremony. I'll send you an engagement gift in the name of Pellet Corporation. Didn't you say the wedding was in a year? Make sure you give me a call. I'll write to you from time to time. Once again, congratulations on your engagement. Tia. P.S. If you need anything else, tell the Pellet Corporation's branch of the Luman estate. I'll send you as much as you want. Having finished reading the letter, Lorraine glanced through the piled boxes. She could see that most of them were tagged by Pellet Corporation. And she quickly realized that there were products that she used to enjoy when she was in Lombardy. Was she worried that I might get homesick? At first glance, it may seem indifferent, but a caring feeling has been conveyed. In the second letter, the grandpa, the sender's name, Lulak Lombardi, was written on the outside of a plain envelope. Lorraine's fingertips trembled, taking out the stationery. The content was not that long. Lorraine, congratulations on your engagement, Lorraine. Don't forget you're always Lombardi. From a distance, your grandfather. Lorraine shed tears with a smile. Then she approached a large box with Lombardi's emblem on it. The quick servants of the Lumens carefully opened the cover. What was in the box was a set of white porcelain beautifully engraved with the world tree, a symbol of the Lombardi family in gold. Everything was perfectly equipped, including dozens of large and small plates and utensils made of pure silver, so that it would be perfect to call in guests and open the dinner right away. The Lord of Lumen, who came quietly and confirmed it, nodded. I have long heard that it is the custom of the Empire to present oneself with the seal of the family in marriage officially granted by the householder. Then he smirked at the enormous number of the balls. As expected, Lombardi's scale. At the same time, he sighed as if he couldn't help it. The golden world tree, which shines more brightly under the intense eastern sun, seemed to tell the Lord of Lumen. It said, Be prepared if you treat my granddaughter poorly. Lorraine held Tia and grandfather's letters in her arms and shed happy tears for a long time. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. At the same time, the Lombardi mansion. Lulak Lombardi was in a meeting with his daughter Shannonette and Lombardi's top owner, Romasi Dillard. Finally, it's time, Lulak said with a pleasant nasty smile somewhere. I thought I had a sore throat for a month waiting for today. Father. Shannonette shook her head, but did not stop him, because it was the day she was looking forward to. Let me say it again, Romasi. Yes, Lord. Romasi Dillard cleared his throat once and recited the contents of the documents in his hand. As a result of the investigation, the red top iron ore will be released on the market from tomorrow. The amount of money spent by the red top to mine iron ore so far is. Lulak's smile deepened as the report that was read by Romasi continued. Stupid. In the meantime, he couldn't erase the thought that Lulak himself had overestimated Jovanes. He hasn't broken the habit of starting to be greedy about one thing and not seeing the other. He's been a very greedy man since he was a child, Shannonette said, soothing her displeasure with a warm tea when she recalled the Emperor Jovanes from her childhood. Are you ready, Shannonette? Yes, just say it. Over the past month, the imperial family and Lombardy have been largely normalized. On the outside it was. Lombardy's stock also started trading in the capital again, and Lombardy's transportation resumed commissioning. Emperor Jovanes would also be at ease. When Tia and the second prince were engaged, Andrena suffocated. Even the empress, who likes to step up, didn't attend the banquet these days and was quiet. Everything's back to normal and he must be relieved. The emperor has already spent a lot of money on mining. It was not an imperial property, but a half of Javane's personal funds which was created by the Red Top. However, iron ore was a good resource to make money steadily, thanks to the stabilized market. It was obvious that they were complacent that the cost of mining could be restored quickly. Lulak was clicked, and he ordered Romasi Dillard and Shannonette unleash the iron ore. Yes, all right, Lord. At Lulak's word, a huge amount of iron ore will be released in the market from tomorrow.
then naturally the value of iron ore decreases. I won't let him make a penny out of iron ore. It was intended that all the money spent on mining would be returned to Jovaine's loss. Of course, it's a huge amount of money for the Red Top, but it's an insignificant loss for Lombardy. Moreover, Lombardy mining plans to diligently purchase cheap iron ore at the lowest price. When the market stabilizes again, all of the iron ore in the Red Top would be in Lombardy's possession. Lulak last spoke to Ashananet. Make sure it gets into Jovaine's ears that it's our Lombardy family who pours out iron ore, Shananet. It's pretty cheap for an emperor who dares to fight Lombardy. Lulak glared at the side of the imperial palace. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Ah, you say iron ore has turned into shit? Cough. Clarivan, who had been drinking water with me, coughed for a long time and managed to answer. Cough. Yeah, Lady Laurentia. My grandfather, the good man. I can't believe he's wasting his money trying to ruin someone else. We can't live without losing. That's it. I shrugged my shoulders. I actually like that kind of my grandfather's personality. In that sense, how's the response to the Eastern Cruise tour promotion? Very good. Violet replied with a very pleasing smile. As the Lady Florentia said, cruise cabins for the next year have already been sold out. Thanks to the cruise promotion, even that event that started with the theme of the escape of love. The Eastern seems to be the honeymoon destination for newly married couples. There's no one going on a trip to the West now, right? Violet nodded at my question. Western travel has almost no reservation except for some elderly nobles. They'd rather go to the fresh and romantic East than the West, where it's hot and steamy, right? Sooner or later, the payment for the construction of Lombardy, which Anjanus delayed and postponed, will come. Empress Rabini doesn't know what she's going to do. Is she going to borrow money from Lord of Zasu again? I returned to the mansion with such thoughts, of course, while humming. But as soon as I got off the carriage, I saw a very interesting scene. All the Lombardi employees were busily carrying things around. It was furniture like a table and a chair. Who's moving? As I murmured like that, a loud shout erupted from the front door. What the hell are you doing? How dare you move my luggage without my permission? Butler John. Vise was seen standing with his neck stiffened and looking for John Lombardi's chief butler. Sure enough, John, who appeared before his name, was called a few more times, notified Vise with a very calm face. As of today, we have been instructed by the Lord to move V's and Sarah's residence from the main building to the back annex. What? V's face turned pale. An annex is a place where guests stay when they come to Lombardy. In short, V's and Sarah are treated as outsiders. Oh, I'll see my father. Where is he now? Do you think something will change when you meet me? The grandfather who came down to the front door, said, looking indifferently at the things carried by the servants. It wouldn't be a bad idea to finish everything at this point. Grandfather approached Viz and sentenced him. As of today, I will deprive you of all your rights. The monthly maintenance fee will also be stopped. Of course, you no longer have to go to the Lombardy Real Estate Office. End of chapter 175.